What's going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadski, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. And of course, the New Year's Sugo Fest is debuting tonight as of the release of this video. So yeah, we're going to be live streaming, we're going to be doing some polls, and I'll probably make a separate video today about that, just kind of discussing the structure of the Sugo Fest, because it is a little bit different to some of the other Super Sugo Fest that we've had in the past. So I'll make a separate video about that. But this video here is pertaining to specifically Gear 5 Luffy. Well, it's technically, yeah, it's a Gear 5 Luffy, but it's also like gear changing Luffy, where the character can change forms in the middle of the fight, which is actually like a really cool ability that he gets access to. So I want to go through his abilities specifically because, like, a lot of people are excited about this, and look, I'm excited about it too. I think that the whole idea of a gear change Luffy, we have had it in the past before, but being able to do it this time with additional gears, obviously getting access to Snake Man and also Gear 5 Luffy, is a pretty big deal. And I do think that this is a really cool character. However, I feel like the execution of this character is a little strange. And I want to go through just kind of like my full breakdown after we've like had this information now for over 24 hours. So let's go ahead and go through this character once again. I'm not going to go through every single itty bitty detail. I kind of just want to like break down the gear change mechanic and how I don't like the execution of it. So the thing about this character, right, is you look at the base form of the unit in terms of the captain ability, because most of the time you're probably going to be using a captain like this, right, that has a lot of damage, and he does have a lot of damage. So you gotta remember, as soon as you start the adventure, this is the only effect in his captain ability, is what you see highlighted right here. Minus 4 turns of cooldown for himself, which is pretty good. When you can see here that this is with Limit Break Plus, so it's gonna be like a 14 turn cooldown most of the time, I think. So it goes down to 10 at the start of the quest just by himself, which that's already really cool, I guess. 5.25 times attack to all characters, by the way, and then 1.2 times HP. Strength and recovery slots are going to be beneficial, right? So that's all the character does, and you don't get these beneficial effects until you activate super effects. Now, obviously, this is relating to using like an EX Super, a Super Type, a Super Class. Those abilities are what enables you to trigger your gear change mechanic. So once you activate one Super effect, you get Gear Second, and then it says you get Gear 3 when you activate a Super Type or a Super Class. I think you need both of those. I think you need both one Super Type and one Super Class. If we actually go in game real quick, should have it connected here. If we actually go to the information for Luffy in game and you open up his captain ability, I love this animation though. I love the motion characters. That's like a massive positive. I love seeing stuff like this. But if you actually go to the captain ability, in the top right hand corner you can see there's a help button. This actually gives you a bit more information. Again, you can see it all in game. You've got the base gear change Luffy, the quick one, but if you swipe to the next screen, it actually shows you getting Gear Second, getting Gear Third, and it shows the requirements and it shows what you get via getting these upgrades, right? So the exact same wording that is on the website that we just looked at is like kind of on here as well. So in Gear Third form, you do get additional damage for each individual super type or super class that is activated on your characters. So basically, if a character has a super type and a super class, they get like a 1.05 times increase per super effect on them. So you get quite a big damage bump when you get to Gear 3. But of course, in order to get that, you need to activate a super type and a super class. And then of course you've got Gear 4, which is Gear 4 Bounce Man and Gear 4 Snake Man, both of which are a little bit different because you've got the generic Gear 4 Bounce Man that activates when you have 3 super effects. It doesn't matter which ones, whether they be class or type. Any 3 super effects, you get Gear 4 Bounce Man. And then you pivot over to Snake Man. And in order to get that, you need to have 3 effects, and it says one of them being super type and one at least super class. So that means that if you use Gear 4 Bounce Man, you could literally just get it just by getting, 3 super types or 3 super classes. But to get Snake Man specifically, you need to have at least 1 super type and at least 1 super class. And I feel like in most cases when you're using this guy, you're going to be getting access to Gear 4 Snake Man most of the time. But this is where I have a bit of a problem, because in order to access like the best parts of this character's abilities in his captain, you want to get to Gear 4 Snake Man. And I guess one of the positive things about it is that if you actually go ahead and use his own EX Super, which is listed here, the effect itself will give you EX Super for Strength, Fighter, and Free Spirit. So that already gives you 3 buffs for a color and 2 classes, which automatically triggers Snake Man form. It mentions it here, that as soon as you use the EX Super of this Luffy, you're going to get all of these buffs and you immediately become into Snake Man. The problem is have a look at what his EX Super actually does. It does tap timing bonus damage for 5 turns, which has added benefits for some of the other characters in this batch. but it applies a weakened status that ignores immunity to status effects for 1 turn, and then you get a further 1.3 damage increase if the enemy also has increased damage taken, which as we know, that's what weakness does, for a total of a 1.69 times increased damage taken effect. The thing is that the ability, when you transform into Snake Man, removes 10 turns of paralysis. Now, I don't know about you, but this ability is really good to have, like, not only for boss fights, but you want to get that ability before you reach the boss in case the enemy inflicts you with that debuff. And the issue that I have is that you really want to use this on a boss stage to amplify the amount of damage that you're going to be dealing to the opponent. But in order to get access to the utility components in his captain ability, you have to use the EX Super prior to. So I just feel like there's a bit of a disconnect here in terms of the design of this character. What I would have preferred is that all utility effects should have been in the base form, and that each individual gear change was either damage reduction, healing, or damage increasing effects. I feel like key utility components should not be in the gear changing effects. These should have been in the normal form, personally speaking. And of course, when you get to Gear 5, that's when you get the absurd damage increase, because if you are accessing the Gear 5 form, you have 4 super effects activated, and each individual effect of a super class or a super type on a character gives them 1.1 times multiplicative damage on top of the withstanding 5.25 times attack, which ends up being quite a lot of damage, totaling for nearly 7 times boost as a captain is absurdly strong, right? But of course, in order to get access to that, you have to like really run some clunky stuff. So like I wanted to bring this up real quick because like this right here, this is the trial quest in order to actually like test out the characters for the first time in game. So this is a screenshot that I took in game. This is the team that you will have to use. Now the thing is if you have a look at the requirements for the EX Super, the requirements require you to use, like, you have to use 2 of the following for just any 2 Straw Hats, right? If you have a look at the example team here, this is not actually like running any of the Straw Hats. And actually, I just noticed right here that there is a bit of a disconnect as well, because this mentions you have to be in the Gear 5 form, or you have 2 of the listed characters. If we actually go in game, it does mention in here the activation requirement is in Gear 5 state or 3 of the following characters. So I don't know what is the correct one. I am considerably hoping that it's 2. If it's 3, that is absolutely brutal. But anyways, seeing like this, I just really do not like all of these activation requirements that are needed. So either, you know, you have the listed characters on your team, or you access Gear 5 form. But in order to access Gear 5 form, you need to actually go ahead and activate up to 4 super effects on your team. So if we look at this real quick, this doesn't have any of the Straw Hats on the team. So in order to access this, you need to get into Gear 5 form. And in order to get into Gear 5 form, you have to go ahead and use super effects. So if we have a look at this team real quick and how this actually works. The friend captain is going to be Sabo. So Sabo, for those of you who don't remember, his EX Super gives you super type for int and super class for cerebral. And then we have a look at Ace and Whitebeard. They also have an EX Super that you can access when you use their Super Switch to become the dual unit, and their EX Super gives Super Class Powerhouse, Super Class Fighter. So that's a total of 4 bonuses. So once you use the EX Super of Sabo, and this character can access the EX Super as a crewmate, you can use that. You get 4 super effects, which triggers Luffy's Gear 5 form, then allowing you to use his EX Super effect. So that makes sense in theory, but it's just really strange, and I just think in high damage content, if you're trying to build teams with this guy, he just seems very difficult to build for. So the way that I'm kind of thinking about this as well is like, what can you kind of use on your account to trigger this EX Super as easily as possible? And I feel like to do it, you need to use this kind of setup where you have like a friend captain, which is using an EX Super with 2 bonuses, and then a dual unit that can give you 2 other bonuses. So these are dual characters currently in One Piece Treasure Cruise that have access to an EX Super. So if we just think about this, like which of these characters can actually work with the new Gear 5 Luffy? This character, probably not. Law and Kid, I just don't think it's going to work too well. They do give Super Int and Super Psi, so I guess that's kind of cool, I guess. But their special ability gives an attack boost to Psi and Int characters, which doesn't really work with Gear 5 Luffy. Dual Yamato also doesn't really work either. This character also has an EX Super, wherever it may be, and it does allow you to get Super Dex, which is, like, again, not that great, but then also Super Striker doesn't really work with Luffy. This character gives color affinity buff, but it is only to Striker and Slasher characters. So again, doesn't really work that well. Zoro and Sanji is an interesting one because while I do think this character does work really well with Luffy, the problem is that Luffy's abilities is focused around the fighter class, where he gives the fighter territory. So it's a bit of a confliction there because Zoro and Sanji transform all of your characters to Slasher and Free Spirit. So you're not really being able to abuse the territory that you're getting via this special ability, unless if you have another character in your crew that can give you a different type of territory where you can get the bonuses because of that. So I don't know. Zoro and Sanji, I think they do kind of work, and they're just such a really good character. The fact that they can transform everyone into Slasher and Free Spirit, and then they also get access to the EX Super to give Free Spirit, the Super Free Spirit, and the Super Slasher characters. So they work really well by transforming everyone into that effect. Then they get the super bonuses for those characters, which of course means that those characters on your crew, all of which being Slasher and Free Spirit, will receive the maximum possible damage increase from Gear 5's captain, because they're going to have access to super type and super classes for like all of their effects. So like this is like really busted, but it's just the fact that Gear 5 being focused on fighter, I don't know if that's going to have a little bit of confliction with Zoro and Sanji. Moving past that, we have Roger, Rayleigh, Gaban. So what does their one do again? They give Super Slasher. Okay, so they only give one effect. So it's not the best, honestly. It's really not. And this character is Slasher focused, though they do provide an attack boost to Strength, Int, and Slasher. So technically does still give Luffy an attack boost, which is kind of neat. So there's that. There's also Kaido and King, and of course this character is focused on Driven and Powerhouse. This character only gives the buff to Super Driven, so not super great overall. Let's go back to Big Mom and Katakuri. Their effect is for Super Quick or Super Dex, depending on which character is active at the time. Probably doesn't work very well. The new Odin, Kinemon, and Denjiro, I don't remember exactly. I assume it's just for slashes. Yeah, Dex or Strength. Okay, right. So it's only giving one benefit to your crew. The new Carrot and the Sulongs, these guys give a buff to slashes, so slashes become super slashes. And then of course you have Ace and Whitebeard, which has just come out recently, and as we know, they give super class fighter and super class powerhouse, which works perfectly. So in my opinion, the only characters that can kind of work in this scenario, in terms, you got to think of like in max damage super boss teams, the only ones that kind of make sense to me are Ace and Whitebeard, as well as Zoro and Sanji. I feel like you can make Zoro and Sanji work because Zoro and Sanji are just insane with what they do. So it's going to be a bit of a clunky setup, I do think. If we also have a look at the special ability here as well, the way that you get all of the bonuses from Gear 5 specials, it says if the enemy has increased damage taken already on them, or your crew has 10 or more turns of end of turn healing, auto healing is what they're calling it. Then that's when you'll get the conditional boost against increased damage taken by 3x for 2 turns. But it does say that even if you don't have this activated, you will still just apply the up to 3 times increased damage taken. So realistically, you could still run someone on your crew that gives you a conditional boost against increased damage taken. But the thing is this effect is so insane, a 3 times conditional boost while also inflicting increased damage taken by up to 3x. Like, this is some crazy numbers that we haven't seen in Treasure Cruise, right? So I feel like if you can somehow abuse 10 or more turns of auto healing on your crew, that means when you activate Luffy's special ability, you're going to get this, you're going to get this, you're going to get this, you're going to get the conditional boost, and he inflicts the condition on the enemy. And then you have to take into account his EX Super, which also inflicts the weakness status that goes through immunity, which amplifies your increased damage even further. It's wild, some of the stuff that this Luffy is able to do. The problem is, he just seems really difficult to build for, you know what I mean? So the thing is we need to look at this. So how many characters that can actually output this 10 turns of end of turn healing? That's the real issue, because if you can somehow apply this, being able to get all of these effects activated simultaneously is a big deal. But you got to do this with this effect of the auto healing whilst also trying to fulfill conditions for his EX Super. So I just think he's going to be extremely difficult to build for, and I think in a lot of scenarios, this is not a good character for like beginner mid-level players. I feel like this character is only going to see max usage on accounts with very established character boxes, right? One character that is obviously perfect in this scenario is the newly released Sabo. The Sabo, if we look at his EX Super, it will give you 10 turns of end of turn healing. So you can use his EX super, it generates matching slots, it gives you bonus effects, also amplifies base attack, which is pretty neat. But the thing is like this effect, 10 turns of end of turn healing, which means when you activate the Luffy special ability, post activating Sabo EX super, you'll get all of the bonuses from the special, you'll get the increased damage taken condition, and you'll also get that conditional boost. So very, very strong effect. So obviously the other character that comes to mind when you think about end of turn healing, whilst also focusing on the fighter class, is none other than Monkey D. Garb, Galaxy Impact. This guy obviously had the same type of effect here. If you have a full team of fighter characters on your crew, whenever you activate an additional damage buff, so like tap timing increase, which a lot of characters in this batch actually focus on doing that, then he replaces that buff with increasing end of turn healing by 2 turns, and at the start of the fight, when this guy is your captain, he gives you the effect of healing end of turn for 8 turns, and then you can basically abuse effects to ensure that the end of turn healing buff consistently will be on your team. It says if you have a recovery slot and you attack with this character, it increases the duration of the end of turn healing by 3 turns. So being able to potentially utilize Garp's effects of end of turn healing, changing timing bonus into end of turn healing bonuses is quite big. So I think Garp might be a character that could be explored to abuse with this new Monkey D. Luffy. Very, very interesting effect. Though this character with his super special, he does give buff to super fighters, which is neat, but it does have an overlap with Luffy, obviously. But of course, if you want to get Luffy's effect to activate, this is one step towards that potentially. So this with something else, like one of those dual units that we talked about a little bit earlier, but this is what I'm talking about. Like, it's very, very clunky to get this to work. And I guess one thing that you could potentially look out for is this free-to-play Kuzan. This free-to-play Kuzan that came out not long ago, when you use his special ability, it says that if you have 4 or less turns of end-of-turn healing, he actually gives you 9 turns of end-of-turn healing, as well as some chain buffs, but then you can go ahead and get his special back when he reduces his own cooldown, and it will also increase the duration of your end-of-turn healing. So as long as you are above 80% HP when you launch his special, you'll get his cooldown back to use it twice to then give you 10 turns of end of turn healing. So I don't know, this may be like a free to play, more accessible option for those people out there that pull the new Luffy to use a character such as this, use his special twice, 10 turns of end of turn healing, Luffy's special ability then triggers getting every component to activate. So that is another free to play accessible option that you could use in this scenario. So that's just my little rant going on about this new Monkey D. Luffy, and while I really do like the design of this guy, he seems a little weird, man. I really want to trial him out because I think that this guy has so much potential to be an amazing character in Treasure Cruise, but we're just going to have to wait and see. And I do think that considering his captain ability being able to scale all the way up to nearly a 7 times multiplier, obviously way larger than anything else that we've experienced in Treasure Cruise thus far, like, it's a big deal, man. It's a huge power jump, so being able to somehow abuse this is going to be a big deal, and I feel like players that are able to build teams that can fully maximize each component of this character is going to be able to build like the highest damage teams that we see. One of the only like real drawbacks to this guy, like obviously the design can be really weird, but that can be overcome. But one of the main issues with this guy is that his final tap is absolutely trash. The fact that it only gives a 2500 base attack buff, it just isn't good enough. He does increase the increased damage taken that he applies by 0.5, meaning that when he does perform his final tap, the 3 times increased damage taken on the opponent does get amplified to 3.5, which obviously is a pretty nice power bump. But like, let's be real here, this final tap could be far superior than what we're seeing right here. Personally speaking, I would have loved if it was this, plus an added component where it makes his final tap rainbow damage super effective against all types. I think if they did that, I would probably be happy with it, but it's just, there's just not a lot going on. So yeah, really underwhelming, especially if level 1, like most people that end up pulling this guy are probably going to have him at level 1, and at level 1, you just get a little bit of base attack. I literally can't comprehend why this keeps happening with final tap characters. They're just so bad. Anyways, that is going to wrap it up for me. Let me know your thoughts and opinions about Monkey D. Luffy. I would love to hear your opinions on him. Do you like this guy? Do you not like him? Are you going to pull for him? As I said, I'll make a separate video in regards to the actual Sugo Fest itself in terms of what the best part looks like. We'll talk about that in a separate video, but hopefully you enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. And that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.